the Metropolitan Council on a sunny afternoon. It is September 13th, 2023. I'm Charlie Zelli, Chair, and I'm calling the meeting to order. We have a robust agenda of business items. And as part of the approval of the agenda, there has been a retraction from what was originally posted under the Environmental Committee report. That item 2023-185. And so I just want to read a statement as to why that was removed before we approve the agenda. There was a consultation with tribal members and staff at the Minnesota Indian Affairs Council, Minnesota State Historical Office, and the Office of the State Archaeologist. And the Environmental Services reviewing project alternatives that would avoid archaeological sites. So since the changes may significantly impact the scope of contract 22P312 for the Hastings Sewer Collection System modifications design, which included an effluent pipe design from the new plant site to the Mississippi River. A delay in the contract award will allow Environmental Services to conduct a preliminary assessment of alternatives and review with changes with the contracts and procurement department to determine the next steps. Okay, in shorthand is we're not ready to advance that contract at this point. And we look forward to kind of working through the consultation process to find some better alternatives. And I totally support the idea of just pausing that contract at this point. So with that, the agenda remains as posted, and unless anybody disagrees, I will assume the contract is accepted. Which brings us to the council minutes of August 23rd, 2023. And although I was not there and it was ably chaired by our council member Chambliss, I submit it for council approval. Is there a motion and a second?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Thank you, thank you. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The minutes are approved. At this point, we have a number of people who would be interested in the public invitation to make a comment on matters not on the agenda. And there are a number that have pre-registered and shown up for 3-minute statements. And there are some meetings we have nobody, and this day we have 7. And I think we should try to fit those 7 comments in. I appreciate your coming before the council. And first off, we have Matthew Bruns. Matthew, are you here? Yes. Well, if Matthew's not here, we can turn to Tony Richardson. Tony, welcome. You have 3 minutes. And don't, right anywhere, right there. Yeah, sure.
First of all, thank you very much for allowing me this time. I'm here on behalf of the SLR 81 committee. We are opposing the Blue Line extension through Robbinsdale. Let me be very clear from the very beginning. I'm not against rapid transit, nor is the committee. We are just against a system that has a history of cost overruns, construction delays, and safety issues, especially when there are viable alternatives, such as alternative routes or bus rapid transit that would be less disruptive to the community. Robbinsdale is primarily a small, close-knit, diverse, vibrant community. The project that's currently proposed would only serve to divide the community, displace both residents and small privately owned businesses, create traffic disruption, and produce pedestrian safety hazards. It took many, many years and millions of dollars to formulate the original West Broadway Blue Line extension. And this original route is what I, along with the majority of the community, not only approved and supported, but we welcomed it. The newly proposed route that will create a multitude of safety issues and disruptions to the many Northwest communities is not supported by us. It is time, and we're asking that you go back to the drawing board and think about the people in the communities and the businesses in the community and develop something, a great solution that we can all support. We are not opposed to transit. We want effective, responsible transit with full municipal consent. As I stated in the beginning, I am not against rapid transit, but I am against a system that is going to prove to be mostly ineffective. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. And as a point of clarification for the council, appreciate your comment. This issue of alignment is not on the agenda, in case there's any confusion. This is, what's on the agenda relates to our capital agreement to advance further work on the Blue Line, but we appreciate these comments nonetheless. Which brings us to Crystal Porter. All right. If Crystal's not here, how about Donna Sanders? No Donna Sanders. Okay. Then Eva Young. Welcome, Eva.
Thank you for taking public comment, Mr. Chair and committee. I am Eva Young. I live in the Lynn Park neighborhood, which, you know, I mean, I'm not speaking for anyone except myself here, but, you know, we were very concerned about having the alignment go along Lyndale between Plymouth and Broadway, and it's no longer the proposal, currently no longer proposes that. And I am, you know, I'm happy about that, and I, you know, want to thank the council for listening to us about that. I've been saying a number of times at the corridor management committee meetings that I do believe that bus rapid transit needs to, I would like to see it being considered. It seems like there's a number of other people that feel that they're going to be harmed. As I understand it, the businesses on Broadway, part of the reason that they're so upset is that they're in limbo until decisions get made, and they don't know how much they're going to get, what's going to happen to their properties and whatever. So, you know, and then there's the concerns of the people in Robbinsdale, and that doesn't get, you know, addressed just by moving it. And it seems like bus rapid transit would solve a lot of problems. It's going to be, you know, as I understand, the light rail isn't going to give a big speed advantage to doing bus rapid transit on that particular alignment. The other thing is, if you want to put that bus rapid transit on Lyndale in our neighborhood, we're happy with that. I've talked to a number of people in our neighborhood. You're not going to get opposition from us for that. And but also there's this consideration, what I keep on hearing is that it's the federal money but the calculation I think that needs to be done is, you know, okay, how much state, local, metropolitan council money goes for budget, for bus rapid transit, what's the cost that way, versus how much state, local, and whatever money goes to to Blue Line extension. That, to me, is the comparison that should be made. I'm not sure. I don't know how you're comparing the cost estimates, but that would be the way I'd draw it. Thank you for, and I took the bus and the express bus over here, so worked real well.
Thank you. Which brings us to Anthony Taylor. Is Anthony here? Welcome.
Hi. Good afternoon. Thank you, Chair Zelli. Thank you, Commissioners. My name is Anthony Taylor. I am a resident at 763 Ashland in St. Paul, and I am also a community member serving on the Metropolitan Parks and Open Space Commission. And I'm here today, actually, I want to speak specifically about the Summit Avenue, I guess we call it regional trail, but people are really, it's turned into this thing about the Summit Avenue bike plan, and that's not what this is. I wanted to speak and really state a case for considering this in the, really in the historical scope of how we have designed our cities. That in reality, there is a plan that we will be doing a reconstruction on Summit Avenue, that it is coming up for reconstruction. That is real. We are going to consider that. That as we do this, there will be a challenge, which is we will likely damage the treescape. We have to have a consideration around that. And I think one of the things I have been considerate of is talking to our urban planning community specifically about what is their specialty as urban arborists. Well, Minneapolis and St. Paul, as major metropolitan areas, have experience here. So there is going to be challenge and damage to the treescape. The bigger opportunity for us is to actually, as we rebuild and redesign our communities, the cities we live in, we have an opportunity to prioritize human mobility and versus cars. It's not even transportation, it's just cars. And that has been the driving force in terms of how we have designed and how we've developed our streets. And so as we look at Summit Avenue, and as we look at this as part of a regional plan and as a master planning process, the idea of how do we prioritize human mobility is really critical. This is also human mobility. I'm using that versus biking because that's not, again, what this is about. The cyclists who likely show up often, which these are my people, I'm part of the problem, spandex and way too many bikes. All they want is, they want bike lanes and a little room. But the families that live next to me, that are using Burleys, that are getting started, and we have inspired, with the work we've done in St. Paul and Minneapolis, we have inspired people to actually get back out on a bike. Now what we have to do is match that inspiration with the infrastructure that supports the possibility of being successful in it. This is the decision, this is the conversation, this is the frame that we can look at this. And our work in MPOSC and your work here is really part of that drive. Met Council, and as I sit here and see people that I actually know in community, that I've walked the sidewalk with, our opportunity is to deliver on that and be a guiding light for that. And so I thank you for your time this afternoon.
Thank you. Good to see you, and thanks for your service on MPOS.
Yeah, thank you.
Exactly 3 minutes.
That is our public persons interested in addressing the council, which brings us to business item number 1. Before we get to the consent and the non-consent business, as the chair, I am going to move item 2023-211, which is a resolution expressing the Metropolitan Council's commitment to a framework for funding the remaining capital requirements for the complete construction and commence revenue service of the Metro Green Line Extension Project. So I think at the last week at the Committee of the Whole, we discussed the agreement with Hennepin County as a framework for funding the remaining needs. We discussed it at length. And given that this vote was recommended at that time. So we have an opportunity to for our staff to answer questions and to talk about the impact on regional investment and benefits preceding the terms of the agreement. So I am supporting this this resolution as a commitment for the council. There will be other actions to formalize the shared agreement later, subsequent to additional work on budget. But at this point, I think it was important, and I agree to bring this before the body at this time. So with that, I will entertain a second to the motion.
Second.
Thank you. Any additional discussion? Councilmember Bento.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. As I indicated last week, I intend to vote against this. And I want to speak specifically to the employees who are pouring their blood, sweat, and tears into this project. I received a call the other day indicating that there was concern that this, to vote this down would result in the project being stopped and jobs being lost. I've not heard that discussed. I don't understand that to be the case. Spent much of my life as a union member, a union staffer, a union leader, and I'm very committed to working men and women, particularly those working men and women who deliver day in and day out here for the council in all of our sectors. And I want them to know that I, and all of you I know, stand with them in the work that they do. And I am confident that this project will be completed. Several years ago, I was asked in one of my cities what in the world was going on out in Southwest. And I was asked by a city council member during a public meeting why we just didn't walk away from it. And I asked him if he had seen the project, and he said no. And I said, I'd be happy to arrange a tour for you. I'd like you to see the project and then ask me that question. Never followed through. I tried a couple of times, there was no interest in seeing it. This is a project that will be completed. I'd like it to be completed with transparency, and I would like it to be completed in a way that lifts all of us region-wide up, and that it makes us proud of the work that has been done and will continue to be done by this council. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, seeing no other hands, we'll bring this to a vote. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed?
No.
All right, the motion carried and the resolution is adopted, which brings us to the consent business agenda. Is there a motion and a second to approve the consent business items?
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. Any discussion there? All right, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, the consent business items are adopted and approved. Which brings us to the community development reports. Councilmember Lindberg.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. Community Development Committee brings 3 items forward for consideration tonight. The first is item number 2023-188. It's to award a contract for property management services for the Metro HRA, Housing Redevelopment Authority, council-owned housing. The Family Affordable Housing Program, or FAHP as we call it, the portfolio was established in 1999 in response to the Holman Decree to purchase 150 scattered site units in 11 cities throughout the region. The program grew again in 2021 with the addition of 4 units through the Edina Affordable Housing Partnership. The FAHP portfolio includes a mix of 154 townhomes, duplexes, and single-family homes with 65 affiliated associations. The council contracts a property management company to oversee the daily operations of these units. The responsibilities include, but are not limited to, lease compliance and rent collection, unit showing and turnovers, resident orientation and education, recommendations for capital improvement priorities, maintenance requests, and project-based voucher and federal subsidy compliance. In May 2023, a formal RFP was issued for property management services. 5 companies downloaded the RFP documents, 3 consultants, and 2 agencies downloaded the proposal to share with other companies. In June 2023, the council received 1 proposal, and an adequate competition determination was completed by the procurement staff. The evaluation panel completed their consensus meeting in July 2023 and recommended approval of Kingwood Management's proposal. This is a 1-year contract with renewal options through 2028. Historically, because of the composition of our portfolio and its scattered locations of properties and operational responsibilities, there has not been significant interest in this proposal. Therefore, Mr. Chair, I move that the Metropolitan Council authorize the regional administrator to execute contract 22P160 with Kingwood Management to provide property management services for the Family Affordable Housing Program in the amount not to exceed $1,098,328.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. Any discussion, questions? All right, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Thank you. Councilmember, that motion passed. Councilmember Little.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The next two items both are grant awards from our Livable Communities account. The first we're entertaining is item number 2023-206. It's the funding recommendations for the 2023 Round 2 Livable Communities Act pre-development grants. The item grants funds to 6 pre-development projects in 4 cities. Pre-development grants are intended for projects that need to complete additional work to fully shape and detail the final development and typically include a range of activities, including but not limited to feasibility analysis, various project studies, infrastructure, system engineering, development and planning needs, design work, and community engagement. 12 applications were received from the cities of Brooklyn Center, Little Canada, Minneapolis, South St. Paul, and St. Louis Park, the St. Louis Park EDA. 6 of the applications submitted met minimum scoring criteria to be eligible for funding and were within our funding limits. The projects awarded will support affordable housing, mixed-use development, and local small businesses. The remaining funds will be allocated to the Livable Communities Account Policy Development Program. Mr. Chair, I move that the Metropolitan Council award 6 Livable Communities Act pre-development grants totaling $898,600 as shown in Table 1 in the business item, and authorize the Executive Director of Community Development to execute the grant agreements on behalf of the council.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Second. Any discussion? All right, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That motion carried. Councilmember Lilly.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The final Community Development Committee item is item number 2023-207. These are the funding recommendations for the 2023 Livable Communities Act Policy Development Grants. Mr. Chair, council members, this item is to award $101,400 in Livable Communities Act Policy Development Grant funds to support 3 policy development projects in 3 different cities. Our policy development grants support cities in developing and adopting policies that support Livable Communities Account goals of increased housing choice through more affordable housing options, living wage, job creation, compact connected development, and environmental sustainability, all with the underlying principle of equitable development. 3 applications were received from the cities of Chaska, Fridley, and New Brighton. These grants will help to update zoning codes that allow for right-sizing parking requirements, increased density, and more housing options for residents. Mr. Chair, I move that the Metropolitan Council award 3 Livable Communities Act policy development grants totaling $101,400 as shown in Table 1 of this business item.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. Any discussion? All right, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? That motion carried. Brings us to the Environment Committee. As I mentioned, 2023-185 has been removed from the agenda, and there are no other business items. The Management Committee has reports on the business agenda section. This brings us to the transportation reports. Councilmember Barber.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair, council members, business item number 2023-190 is regarding the approval of the release of the 2024 Regional Solicitation and Highway Safety Improvement Program applications. Following the award of projects with the 2022 regional solicitation, TAB evaluated feedback of the regional solicitation process from applicants, scorers, and committee members. Because the regional solicitation process will be reviewed starting this fall, TAB scheduled release of the 2024 regional solicitation several months ahead of the traditional schedule and is primarily recommending implementation of immediately necessary changes. The council selects projects for funding from several federal programs, including the Surface Transportation Block Grant Program, the CMAQ Program, the Carbon Reduction Program, and the PROTECT Program. During a public comment period, TAB received 18 comments, which led to the recommendation of minor changes to the 12 applications. Therefore, Mr. Chair, I move that the Metropolitan Council concur with the Transportation Advisory Board action to approve the attached regional solicitation package, including the Highway Safety Improvement Program solicitation for 2028 through 2029 funding and 2026 through 2027 funding for travel demand management and unique projects, and to release the solicitation.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. Any discussion?
I-
Councilmember Chambliss.
Thank you. I just wanted to get some additional information on the changes to the application process. If there's someone here that can speak to that?
Yeah, to Ms. Joe Barbo can come up.
Welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Joe Barbeau from MTS.
Okay, I just wanted to know what the specific changes to the application process were based on the comments or requests by TAB.
I should have brought my notes on that. Can you give me a second?
Sure.
Mr. Chair.
Yes.
While he's doing that, I can probably add some context. As we were going out and getting comments and discussion, both for the transportation policy plan coming up and for the regional solicitation process, the message we hear over and over is relative to safety. And so in several categories, there was additional measure or weight provided to the safety category for some of the scoring criteria. I think that's the primary one. There were some other minor things that were changed with it.
I think that explanation is sufficient. I did hear about the safety changes, but I thought it would be important for the council to also weigh in or have someone elaborate. If he doesn't get back, then he could follow up later.
Perfect.
So
Well,
just the record will note that he will come back and you will be provided even more information. Any other comments, questions? All right, and if we're ready to vote, I will call for a vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? All right, thank you. Councilmember Barber.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair, council members, business item number 2023-194 is regarding the approval of the release of the 2040 Transportation Policy Plan Amendment 2 for public review and comment. The 2040 TPP includes a fiscally constrained list of major projects for investment in the region by 2040, known as the current revenue scenario. Projects that add new lanes to principal arterial highway or construct an interchange are considered regionally significant projects and must be included in the current revenue scenario in order to be included in the Transportation Improvement Program or the TIP and begin construction. So this amendment adds 5 regionally significant highway projects to the 2040 TPP. They are the Highway 10 Congestion Mitigation Project, which expands US Highway 10 in Anoka County from 2 to 3 mainline travel lanes in Coon Rapids between County State Aid Highway 78 and County State Aid Highway 9. It also includes the US 169, CASA 59 interchange project, which converts an at-grade intersection on Highway 69 in Scott County to a grade-separated interchange. There's a project, that's the I-94 Albertville to Monticello Lane Expansion Project in Wright County, which expands approximately 8 miles of I-94 from 2 to 3 travel lanes in each direction. The next one is the Minnesota Highway 65 Access Improvement Project, which converts an intersection on Highway 65 in the city of Blaine to a grade-separated interchange. And then finally, it's the last project is the Minnesota Highway 13 grade separations in Dakota and Scott counties, which will convert at-grade intersections to grade separations between Quentin Avenue in Savage and Nicollet Avenue in Burnsville. All 5 projects are fully funded through a variety of sources and funding programs. These projects assist in helping the region reach the outcomes articulated in the 2040 TPP, while simultaneously not affecting the fiscal constraint of the plan. Therefore, Mr. Chair, I move that the Metropolitan Council approve the release of the 2040 Transportation Policy Plan Amendment Number 2 for public review and comment.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
All right, any discussion? Yes, Councilmember Barber first.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. These are, a lot of the funding that we're talking about here is corridors of commerce, and these are very important projects. I know the one in my district on Highway 13 is very important. It has big freight impacts across the entire metropolitan region. So this is really nice to be able to get these into the TPP so they can get moving as quickly as possible. But I think, just the list of projects, there's probably a lot of us who've heard a lot about these particular roads in our districts. I see Councilmember Lindstrom nodding because I know he has many. And so this is very, very positive for the region.
All right, Councilmember Chambliss?
Well, thank you. I am glad that we have the opportunity to make these improvements as well. Looking at the Thrive Lens analysis, it's again related to safety with the at-grade interchanges. And again, 169, 94, 10 are highways that I travel frequently and are in my district as well, so including Highway 65. So I'm happy to support this.
Any other comments, thoughts? Councilmember Barber?
We can see if Mr. Barbeau has returned, if they wanted to add any context to the prior one, or when would you like to do that?
Because Steve, right?
With Joe.
We actually passed in your absence,
Okay.
but we're still interested in your information, so,
Right.
but let's,
Okay, that's what just, yes.
let's pass this item as relates to the previous item, if that makes sense. All right. We have this, we're now considering 2023-194. And for the record, Highway 65 used to be called the Jefferson Highway, just for those watching at home and interested. All right, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, that motion carried. Joe, we're sorry to preempt you, but we are interested in this information we
Well, I'm
promised we'd
sorry,
hear.
Mr. Chair, that I didn't have anything. I was not anticipating
okay.
that question, and I'm going to acknowledge in advance, this is a big effort, and I'm not hands-on every item, but every element, I should say. But I will do my best.
No, yeah. And maybe we'd share it more in detail after the meeting. Is that something?
That is-
I can do that. And so to the question, I don't know if there are more questions or will be, but to the question of what public comments changed, public comments didn't change a lot of pieces of this. The main thing was a terminology change where we changed the term equity populations, I believe, to, I have to apologize, I don't remember what the resulting term was, and I don't think we name it here in this report. So it was a terminology change. It doesn't change the direct way that the projects are applied for or scored. The rest of the public comments really did not lead to direct changes, if I recall correctly, in the solicitation. Most of the changes came prior to that.
Chair.
Great. Councilmember
One more
Chambliss.
question, just to clarify what we kind of discussed in Chair of Transportation Barber did explain that in terms of the criteria for application, there was more heavily weight put on safety.
Yes, member and chair, that's true. I was sort of maybe taking too literally the question of post-public comment. So yeah, there was more emphasis put on safety, which was a common theme throughout the review from technical committee members, from TAB, and from other commenters that we got. So safety is taking up a higher percentage of the scoring overall in every category than last time.
Okay, thank you.
That's helpful. Joe, thank you.
Thank
I
you.
appreciate that. And we'll know where to go.
This time I'm leaving and not coming back.
Councilmember Barber.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Business item number 2023-197 is the Metropolitan Council authorizing the regional administrator to work contracts for the Transit Service Intervention Project. The council received funding for the Transit Service Intervention Project enacted in the Transportation Omnibus Bill. And with that, a request for declarations of interest was advertised in June, and a pre-proposal meeting was hosted by council staff that outlined the solicitation requirements, discussed project specifications, and responded to inquiries. We received 30 submittals by the end of July, which was the deadline, and then there was a review process of all of those items. We're doing a two-phased approach to the award of these grants. We wanted to get some out very quickly that focus really on direct mental health services or support capacity to perform on-site social services. 5 organizations were being recommended for the Phase 1 awards. They are The Link, Minnesota Community Care, Minnesota Care Partner, Mental Health Minnesota, and We Push for Peace. This will use up a portion of the $2 million that was appropriated from the Transportation Omnibus Bill for this intervention program. The Phase 2 recommendations are anticipated to follow later in September. Therefore, Mr. Chair, I move that the Metropolitan Council authorize the regional administrator to award and execute contract 23P116 A through E that will provide support to people who are turning to transit while experiencing homelessness, suffering from mental illness, or facing other challenges in an amount not to exceed $766,844 as outlined in the business item.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. Any discussion?
Mr. Chair?
Yes,
Yeah,
Councilmember.
thank you, and just a quick comment. Thanks, Councilmember Barber, for bringing this forward. I just think this is kind of a momentous step forward in a real expansion of our approach to safety on transit, which is a primary concern of ours and also of our riders. And this is taking not just an enforcement approach, but really bringing services to support people who need them. And I'm looking forward, as Councilmember Barber has sort of indicated, we'll see more of this kind of action and more of more innovation thanks to the state legislature and funds from the state legislature that will support the transit police, the civilian security, and others. And I just want to share this with my colleagues here in this public setting, that I have heard just in the last few weeks since we've implemented the supplemental security, the pilot at the Franklin and the Lake Street stations, both of which are within my district, just spontaneous comments from community members about the difference that it has made. And we saw the numbers from the chief at his report here. Crime is still higher year over year, but it's dropping considerably every month. And so I think it's important to sort of celebrate our successes and to note that we're being responsive to the communities in trying to do innovative things here.
I appreciate that comment, Councilmember. And I certainly, we've all witnessed that we have much work to do, but we really like the trends and the progress we're making.
Thank you.
Councilmember Johnson.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. I really appreciate this, proposal that's moving forward and the funding that's coming in. We've all said that this is a public safety issue, but it's way bigger than that. And we've all said it. It's about the broader community, and we've been asking for help. But until you get the funding and the resources are there, it's hard to put together that help beyond what our PD is doing every day, which they're doing commendable and amazing work. I also just want to emphasize that this is going to have to be a sustained effort. And even with our interim funding that we've got for 2 years around the supplemental security, it's a $6 million contract for 2 years. So what we really are trying to do is attack this from both ends, right? Helping people where they need it, addressing people who are preying on our customers in and around our stations, and then trying to solve sustainably so that we can continue to expand our system and people can feel safe and secure with the routes that we currently have and the routes that we'll be proposing as well. So I'm really pleased to support this, and I look forward to that comprehensive help that people will need to help build safety not only for them, but for the neighbors around them.
Great. Councilmember Barber.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just very quickly, I really want to thank all of the people at Metro Transit who've been working to pull this together. I see General Manager Kinderus in the back there. Doing this in such a short time period, it has taken a really concerted effort and a lot of focus, and really want to commend all the staff that is working on this. I think that when you look at the safety and security action plan, and this is just a piece of it, but I've just been out on the system myself. There is a difference, and it is a very noticeable difference. Our goal is to figure out with all these different programs what works and what works the best, but really the creativity and the focus on this has been quite impressive. So just thank you to all the staff on this.
Any other discussion? All right, all those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That motion carried. Councilmember Barber.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair, council members, business item number 2023-202, same week, is for approval to award and execute a contract for Blue Line Enhancements Phase 2 construction contract. The Blue Line Enhancements Phase 2B is a state of good repair project that will rehabilitate track and signals on the Blue Line LRT between BCS, which is Bloomington Central Station, and Terminal 1 Station in Bloomington. This contract is part of a program of projects to rehabilitate the entire Blue Line. Railworks Track System is the low responsive responsible bidder with a total bid of $18,640,000. Therefore, Mr. Chair, I move that the Metropolitan Council authorize the regional administrator to execute to award and execute contract 23P039 with Railworks Track Systems for replacement track, rail upgrades, and replacement of signal components on the Metro Blue Line in an amount not to exceed $18,640,000.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. Any discussion? All right, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? That motion carried. Councilmember Barber.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair, council members, business item number 2023 is for the Metropolitan Council to authorize the Blue Line Extension Capital Grant Agreement with Hennepin County for the Blue Line. The proposed CGA, which is number 22I038, replaces two former Hennepin County and HICRA agreements with the single agreement effective September 1st, 2023 through December 31st, 2024. These funds are the primary funding source at the time for the Blue Line Extension Program and a planned future federal match. The CGA emphasizes partnership, collaboration, shared decision-making, and accountability with a new governance model and integrated staff. The new governance model includes the Project Decisions Board, or the PDB, which is comprised of Metropolitan Council and Hennepin County Commissioners, approves and authorizes major project decisions in partnership, supplements but does not replace existing Met Council oversight and approval authority. This is limited notice to proceed number 2 for the engineering services contract and will allow for preparation of 30% design plans and preliminary engineering activities to complete the municipal consent process. Therefore, Mr. Chair, I move that the Metropolitan Council authorize the regional administrator to negotiate and execute the 2023 through 2024 Blue Line Extension Capital Grant Agreement, number 22I038, with Hennepin County and Hennepin Regional Rail Authority in the amount not to exceed $75,305,000 and issue limited notice to proceed number 2 to the engineering services contract number 22P103A to advance design plans and complete the municipal consent process.
Thank you.
Second.
Thank you. Any discussion? Councilmember Barber.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just a few comments so members understand the scope of this particular action. We're going to have a future action which authorizes the $75 million to come into our budget. And this is, with this limited notice to proceed, it authorizes us actually to only spend a portion of that, and that is to get it to a certain point. As you've all known, I have concerns about what we understand at this point in time about where the blue line is, like what is our post-COVID ridership? You know, I have concerns about the timing and capabilities and just ability as an organization to do 2 mega projects at one time. However, what this step does is it really gets us the answers to a lot of the questions that we keep asking. So we will know the post-COVID ridership with new models. Right now, we're working on models that were developed in 2019 or before that. We'll have a new model that factors in new types of ridership. This will give us the costs, this will give us the schedule, and really, if you look at even what happened during the last legislative session, in the transportation bill, they authorized $10 million towards the blue line to do this. And so I think it brings in alignment with a lot of the different entities who are looking at this to say, this is, you know, we need this information to make good, solid decisions. Before any more, like another limited notice to proceed would happen, there would also be, we'd have to go back again and pull in and use our transit way advancement policy to make sound decisions and understand the risks at that time. So I just want to make sure we're really clear about this because, you know, because this is a step, and that will answer a lot of these questions. I am going to support this tonight, but I, you know, want to make sure that there's a good understanding that our goal with this step is to answer the questions that we keep getting asked.
Thank you, Councilmember Barber, for that explanation. Any other discussion?
Mr. Chair.
Councilmember Johnson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I really do appreciate the opportunity in this grant agreement to utilize the funds to get us the information that we need. I think that's critically important. I would just like to ask a question when it comes to municipal consent. That's been talked about here and there. I've read with interest some articles coming out of a local newspaper and news station about Robbinsdale in particular and maybe others questioning what does municipal consent mean. As I read the story and listened to the story, I think the locals are feeling like, and I look up the articles and ask the mayor and council members themselves, but they, I think I'll paraphrase maybe the mayor and a couple others in the story, that they don't really believe that they have the ability to say yes or no. They think it's a done deal. It's going to happen anyway. And I think the best they think they can do is to make a bad thing better. So I have, of course, been digging into municipal consent, and Nick has been able to send me some of the information, and I think other council members might have questions on this as well, and I know I've gotten the question from some community members too. So as I read it, I also became concerned that there's a loop in there that they have to present in a certain prescribed time to the Met Council, I believe it is, of the concerns that they have, and then we have a period of time whereby we can work on whatever the alignment is to mitigate those concerns and send it back to the local body that's raising the objections. But with that said, I've been under the impression, and it's been stated that, you know, all of the cities along the line have to give municipal consent, which will be coming up in the next year. And if they don't consent, the project won't move forward. And I just want to be very precise about the law that's driving this, about what we are posting on our website and what is being conveyed in community. And I think get the clarity on this, because I know there are people here tonight that would like to know that answer. I know I would like to know that answer. And I think that if we have communities out there that don't understand what their role is, and maybe they do, maybe they are just going to try to do the best they can to mitigate concerns, and they can't really say no. But Nick, if Mr. Chair, if it's okay with you, I spoke with Nick in advance, and he'd be happy to just share that bit for us because it's part of this decision tonight.
Yeah, very helpful, great question. First, Councilmember Barber, then Nick.
I'm very quickly going to turn it over to Nick, but maybe mention like what's happening about the alignment adoption with the CMC and then the municipal consent.
Thank you.
Yeah, Mr. Thompson.
Mr. Chair, council members, Nick Thompson with Metro Transit. So I'll step back a little bit with municipal consent. Municipal consent is a somewhat uniquely Minnesota thing. Municipal consent exists for major transportation projects in our state. And it depends on the type of project. It often, MnDOT uses municipal consent. It is a state prescribed process. And it applies, in this case for Blue Line, to light rail transit. There's a very specific process for light rail transit municipal consent. And so that's the process I'll describe tonight. But just so you know, it's really grounded in the fact that probably historically there were projects built that didn't have community support, alignments that didn't have support, and decades ago, our state legislature said we need municipal consent as a signal to show that regional investments also support community values. And so that's sort of what this is grounded in. It has evolved as light rail transit has come to our region and is prescribed. And what it is, so tomorrow, the Corridor Management Committee will meet. The Corridor Management Committee, again prescribed in statute, who the members are, is represented by members, cities and the county and other members along the corridor. We are going to ask the Corridor Management Committee to recommend advancing a preferred alternative route and stations tomorrow by resolution. That is an advisory vote, so that allows us to continue to move the project forward. That allows us to start working on what we call 30% design, so that we create design plans that answer the questions a community would have about the impact of the project. So we will design the project to 30%, so we'll know exactly where the tracks are, which exact properties would be impacted by construction, how every intersection along the alignment will work, what the project will cost. We'll have ridership information. We'll know exactly the impacts of building this project. And we'll know about utility impacts and wastewater and water, community utilities. We will develop that over the next several months and working with our cities. Every week we meet at the technical level with each city and the county, their public works teams, to design the project in their community. And once we get it advanced to that point where we're ready to seek municipal consent, that's when we follow the process. There's multiple steps, I'll describe a few, but really what is happening is that's the point each city along the alignment will express their support or not for the project. And so we will start with a public hearing that the council leads. That is the kind of the kickoff of the municipal consent process. And that's really for the whole corridor where we describe in detail the project details and then take public comment at the regional level. And then we schedule with each of the 4 cities on the alignment and with Hennepin County and probably with the park board, that's an open question yet, a public hearing in each community. And then we will present the design plans there. Public hearings obviously are formal public input processes. There is a calendar prescribed for every event. So once a public hearing is described, the city has so many days to act and provide us information. And each city gets to describe if they can support the project as is, or they can not support it. But if they do not, they have to describe the elements of the project within their city that, if changed, would get the city's support or the county's support. So if you think about on the Blue Line extension, there'll be individual actions for municipal consent all along the corridor. And each city will be talking about consent around the project within their city boundaries. And so to the council here, that is really an official signal of whether that city supports the project. And it is not a requirement that the project advances. If all the cities along it support the project or ask for changes to the plan that we then can accommodate, that's an input to the council to decide whether to continue to move forward. And so it's essentially iterative. And if a particular city says, I'm going to vote no, but if I have these 5 changes made, then I would be able to vote yes. And then we as the council must change the design plans if we can and bring back the changes to the city. And really it starts another voting process. So it's a very iterative process. It is described in law with very time-specific dates, though. And the reason is these are major projects that need to keep moving. or stop. And so a city may choose not to act within the time frame, and if they don't act, that is essentially giving municipal consent. So there's a lot of power for each city to really influence the design and to communicate whether they support the project at the individual level. Now, it's difficult because you may have different types of votes because there's multiple votes along a corridor that we have to build the entire corridor. We have a history of this impacting projects in our region. Our BRT projects do not require municipal consent, but we have been seeking municipal approval. We've been kind of, in essence, following this process because we think it's a good process. It's a really good way to officially cities weigh in. On the purple line, White Bear Lake actually gave municipal consent, but after the fact, they changed their support for the project, and we have rescoped that project to not include White Bear Lake. On the gold line, which is under construction, Lake Elmo, the original route was into Lake Elmo. That city said, we do not want that project, and so we changed the route to terminate in Woodbury. So these are input processes that are very valuable. And, you know, after the action tonight, if it's approved, that's really the important next year. This is a really critical year for a project. That's really where we nail down the design, the route, the stations. Every individual property, whether it's impacted or not, will have an answer to that. And that's really what people are waiting for. And then that collective amount of information is what a city needs before they can officially say whether they support the project.
Yes or no.
Right, and we have not asked them that yet because we haven't provided that information. Even tomorrow's vote on CMC is not a binding vote. It's just a concurrence that we're following the right direction, ready to move into that. So municipal consent is a very important step. It's a very important signal. The cities are empowered. This is designed by our legislature to empower a city to really show what they want for their community.
Councilmember Johnson.
Thank you, Nick. I really appreciate that. So if a city does not want this route the way it's being potentially proposed after the meeting tomorrow, because let's remember, it was originally supposed to be on the BNSF tracks, which people had, I think, a lot less objection to because there's already trains going there and it's not cutting through their neighborhoods, their streets, their intersections, impacting their business storefronts, and on and on and on, the safety, all of it, right? So that's not gonna happen anymore. Too bad we didn't, really trust our gut way back when BNSF said no, but we let it linger for a while. And I do believe there was a moment perhaps that the county, which is their project, had said, okay, what are we gonna do? And they wanted to remain it with light rail. And so then the new alignment came out, and I understand that too. But that's where the issue now of concern is really hitting community, and we've heard about it, and it's in our inboxes, and it's in the newspaper, and it's in editorials, and the groups have formed, and they're very, very opposed to the route that's being proposed, and when it moves here and it moves there, it just moves the problem to somebody else's neighborhood. So, and with that, let me just be very clear. I know there is, especially, when you get to the northern end of the route, where 81 opens up a bit, there's some economic opportunity up there for sure, and potentially along the whole corridor. But they're very different pieces to the whole puzzle, and that's what I think. For my vote, I have to be very mindful of. Again, had it stayed in the rail corridor, we're probably moving along. So I just wanted to make that clear. So, Nick, if a city said, we just can't handle the fact that it's moved off of BNSF, and no matter what iteration is coming our way, we just don't support this, and they vote that way, and they get it in the process that way, and follow the law to give us that feedback, what would be the result?
Chair, council members, I think that's a hypothetical.
It is.
Our goal of the project is to get municipal consent from each community. But the city is required to provide the steps the design issues that they object to in a project, that if those issues could be overcome through changes, they would support it. So we'd have to see what they would propose in any committee to gain support. So that, we'll work with them on how they would have to describe that.
So, Mr. Chair, if I may, just briefly. So then there might be the understanding of some of the mayors and council members that say, no matter what we do, we probably just can't say that we don't want this, because we have to come up with some form or fashion to make what is not acceptable more acceptable, even though not what they originally wanted, because that is no longer available to them, because the entirety of this is to keep the project moving forward. If that's what I just want these cities to really understand what authority they have, because right now, if you read, I've heard you say that if cities don't approve this, the project stops, it doesn't move forward, but there's a lot of detail involved in that, and I just want cities to understand what their roles are, because some of them think it's a done deal, and they're sanding down the edges of the concerns that they may have, hoping to get, something that's less, that's more acceptable than perhaps what they would ideally want.
Mr. Thompson.
Council, so there's a municipal consent process that is very prescriptive, they would have to say, but, I mean, this board has seen in the past year a city come forward to say, we no longer want a project, and then this board decided what to do with the funding partner. So municipal consent is a step, but that's, it doesn't create, that isn't the one black and white thing that answers a project. It's overall, there's all kinds of elements that have to go into the decision process. This is an input into your decision process about whether or not there's community support for the project to move to the next phase. And that's part of the Transway Advancement Policy also, about is there support for this project?
Absolutely. Mr. Chair, just to put kind of an end point to this, if there's any way that Met Council can convey this process to our local cities the way we will be administering it under state law, just so that there's no confusion or misinformation in the entire community along the corridor, I just think that'd be really good. Because we don't want anybody to be in a process that is not clear to them, or they're hearing things from people. I think as the authority partner in this, around executing this piece of state law, I think it'd be good if we could make sure that we're communicating that very clearly. And I would ask that that be done as part of, whether it's tonight's vote, because it's the critical piece that gets us to the next step with more information. But for some of these that, again, are worried about what this means, or they don't believe that municipal consent gives them the power they need, I just want to make sure that's clear.
Yeah, and I'll just make a comment. Thank you, Councilmember Johnson and Nick. I think we would exhibit through our actions and our words that municipalities have tremendous power and ability not just to shape, but to actually say, this doesn't work. And I think we've exhibited that in White Bear and Lake Elmo, but we need to reemphasize that municipalities are very important partners and have tremendous power in this process. We need to make sure that that's affirmed. So point well taken.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I will just say this, this is a very, very important corridor in this region, and we are one region. And again, from somebody who's lived on the north side and been very involved in community on the north side, I cherish the north side. I have family and friends who live up and down this corridor, and I know that the entire community is hopeful for investments that will advance the people, the families, the businesses, future economy, and all of that. I know that, there's a famous quote by Nick in the paper, and I thought it was really brilliant. This is a LRT project until it isn't. And right now, I'm just somebody who would like to see BRT considered. And that's not on the table right now. But I'm hearing loud and clear from community. I'm hearing loud and clear from other stakeholders and partners in the region that it should be considered because it's not on BNSF anymore. And I hear people who are very concerned about another major transportation project careening through their neighborhood and community, which we are trying to solve in other areas where that has happened and undo it. And I think we just really need to listen very hard and hear what they're telling us. And I understand too, every step we take, there's a point of no return. And Southwest LRT is also a very important corridor, but we have to finish that. It's been stated and we have to. This is a very important corridor, and if significant requests are coming, could we please consider BRT. I know that it is not a BRT project right now, but I wish we could do that. So with that, Mr. Chair, I will not be supporting it to advance this tonight, but I will welcome the information that we get, because we do still have our transitway advancement policy that we will measure risk for our enterprise. But at the same time, every community group, neighborhood, person who lives on the new route, because now we're hearing from them, they are also measuring their life risk. Do we move? Do we sell? What do we do? What will this affect my business? And I do appreciate the great work that's being done around safety and all of that, but we did just get a letter from a business association in South Minneapolis along Lake Street that is very concerned still about, the work. We will get there, we are doing it, but I just think I will say it this way, I think it was the editorial from the community paper, just pump the brakes. Let's try to get Southwest done. Let's take a breath here. Let's reassess, the concerns of the community and try to make sure that we invest in something that people can get around and not be harmed by. And I will just add this. It is not to shirk this corridor. They should have this investment and many more where they've been neglected over the years or feel that they're due more investment. I'm fully behind that. But my communities, just as an example, don't look at LRT as the bigger, better thing. We don't think so in most of my community. There will be people, of course, that like light rail, but generally we're, highway and BRT people. So my vote is not to, say that they shouldn't have the investment they deserve. They absolutely should and more. But I'm just concerned about what I'm getting in my inbox and in my voicemails and when I'm meeting with people. So I will be voting no tonight with all due respect.
All right. Any other comments? Councilmember Vento and then Councilmember Lee.
Thank you, Nick. I asked similar questions this afternoon, and if I had known that Councilmember Johnson was going to ask those, I wouldn't have wasted your time this afternoon. I, too, am going to be voting no, and having represented a district that included the purple line and also includes the gold line, both those lines had it made easy when White Bear and Lake Elmo opted out, because depending on which direction you were going, they were either at the beginning of the route or the end of the route. And it made it easy to resolve, it made it easier to resolve it. It didn't make it easy to resolve it. We had to, go back and regroup. I'm concerned about a city that might be in the middle of this proposed route and the kinds of pressure they're going to face from their community partners, neighbors, their county. So I, for that reason, I'm deeply concerned. I also have to repeat what I've said before, and that's my concern about existing businesses and neighborhoods. The uncertainty of this is very anxiety-inducing. And we've all seen with whether it's a BRT project or an LRT project, the disruption that occurs and the impact on small businesses. I have a favorite spot in one of my communities that I love to go to, and they're still under the pressure of recovering from COVID and now dealing with a major project, one of ours, out their back door, and it's impacting their business. And I would hope that as we prepare for the next legislative session and as we continue our work with our local partners, that we talk about what we're doing to help support those neighborhoods and to support those businesses so they can survive. The fact they made it through COVID shows that they're tenacious and they're working hard. But whether or not they can continue to make it as it relates to the disruption of transit projects is another source of stress, both fiscally and physically for them. So I would ask that the council take that on as an initiative, and whether it's state, federal, local, I don't know how we do it, but we've got to figure out a way to be supportive. It's not just about new businesses, it's about the current businesses. Thank you.
Councilmember Lee.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. I just want to, my comment is just that if we relied on the private freight companies to share tracks with them, we would never build any LRTs. During the Civil War, the President Abraham Lincoln gave all the money and power to the railroad companies so that we could use the logistics of the railroads to fight and win the Civil War. And that's why they have so much power in this country. And that's just my comment. Thank you.
Yeah, interesting. Thank you.
Mr. Chair, if I may.
Councilmember Johnson.
Thank you for that point, Councilmember Lee, because anybody who's ever been in local government or any level of government knows who the all-powerful are, and that is the railroads. And with that said, that is why, quite frankly, Southwest went through some torturous iterations of trying to figure out a route, and the co-location became a thing, and the railroad had demands on that then that became very onerous on the project. And so to your point, I completely agree. And with that said, it's too bad that we really relied, and I mean we, as in our partners, Hennepin County, and then us, really thought that BNSF was going to come around, because I knew early on that one, and I had some relationship with BNSF, and I'm like, no, that's not going to happen. But what it really means is we've got communities up and down this line now that are getting, something that they weren't anticipating. And I think that there's going to be a lot of angst. And I think that, if we could just take a moment and revisit, is this LRT or could this be BRT? I think at least for a time span while we're trying to get Southwest done, I think it would benefit the entire corridor. And it would benefit, I think, the workload that we've got starting to come in rapid succession here at the Met Council.
For those that were willing to buy me a drink, I'll tell you stories about going to Fort Worth. But I appreciate Councilmember Barber's framing the issue of many questions, particularly alignment. And is this really going to happen in this way? Is the steps we're marching forward to.
And Councilmember Johnson.
Councilmember Johnson.
Although I do really hope one day I can be as smart as
very well
Councilmember Barber on transportation.
Yeah. Councilmember Wolf.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I appreciate that this agreement has a better clarity on who's going to pay for the overruns, which undoubtedly will happen. We're stuck in a federal process that is very, very dysfunctional, which got us to where we are today on Southwest. And we went through, it's like Groundhog Day. We went through the exact same thing of this isn't working. The questions are not being able to be solved. And there was a ton of pressure of, you've got to keep this project going. You've got to keep this project going. And I voted against it as the locally preferred alternative way back when. And because I said, you've got all of these unanswered questions that aren't adding up, right? And if you just did BRT, it would have been $500 million. And that would have been running for about 8 years now, had they been willing to look at BRT on that alignment with the dedicated running way. But it was Hennepin County's money, and they only wanted to do LRT. And then they came back with the blue line. BNSF says no, and we had an opportunity to say, hey, let's look at BRT again. And Hennepin County said no, and the federal process says if you look at BRT, you have to go back to the beginning. But it's a really important question. This is a huge amount of money. I mean, for what we've spent on Southwest, we could have built 5, 6 BRTs with dedicated running ways with that amount of money and give everybody transit. Now we're looking at the blue line, and when you're doing a project on rails that is not possible to be moved around, it's not flexible at all, you need to know that you have high ridership all day long, every day, and that ridership is going to be continuous for 40, 50 years. With COVID, we found out we don't even know if we're gonna have ridership next week. So there's a whole different set of circumstances here that should make us all go back and say, well, what about BRT? Why don't we do 5 BRTs with that money instead? But Hennepin County doesn't want to ask that question. And I can see from all of my experience that it's not going to have the ridership. It's going to be too expensive. It's too disruptive. They don't want the development that goes along with it, which is why we have this big anti-displacement process. And all of those questions would be answered if we looked at BRT instead. But we're talking about spending $73 million. You can buy a lot of stuff with $73 million. I mean, we see things with lots of zeros after them all the time, and you get a little
callous about how much money we're actually spending, but this is a lot of money when we don't need that level of detail to say, hey, wait a minute, this is not working. But once again, it's not our project. We're the contract administrators for Hennepin County. And I'm a little tired of being, a kicking bag because we did what they wanted with their last bunch of money. I'm not going to vote to do it again. This is wrong. So I will be voting no on this item.
Any other discussion? All right, we've had a motion, it's been seconded, and we've had discussion. All those in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed?
No.
That motion carried.
Mr. Chair, could we have a roll call vote?
I'm
Mr.
going to
Chair,
listen to the council.
I would offer just a roll call vote without objection from the chair.
You can't.
Yeah.
All right, we'll have a roll call vote, and I think that's acceptable.
Roll call immediately after that.
Bridget, will you call the roll?
Yes. Johnson,
No.
Chambliss.
Yes.
Barber,
Aye.
Pacheco,
Yes.
Lilligren,
Aye.
Cameron,
Yes.
Zelli,
Aye.
Morales,
Aye.
Lindstrom,
Aye.
Peterberg,
Aye.
Bento,
No.
Lee,
Aye.
Carter,
Aye.
Volkar,
Aye.
Wolf.
No.
All right, we had a roll call vote. The motion carried. Thank you for the conversation. On to the business item. Is that Councilmember Johnson?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I am pleased to bring forward item 2023-174. It's a joint same-week amended 2023 budget amendment for the third quarter. Mr. Chair, the 2023 third quarter budget amendment makes changes to the operating budget in regional administration, community development, environmental services, MTS, and Metro Transit, and changes to the capital budget in regional administration, community development, environmental services, MTS, and Metro Transit. The proposed amendment was reviewed and approved by the Transportation Committee on August 14th, the Community Development Committee on August 21st, and the Environmental Services Committee on August 22nd, and the Management Committee on August 23rd. After approval by the Management Committee on the 23rd, MTS added one item to the amendment in the operating budget and changed the amount of federal funding for 2 projects in the MTS Authorized Capital Program to reflect very recent commitments from FTA. The amendment was then reviewed and approved by the Transportation Committee on September 11th and the Management Committee this afternoon on the 13th. In regional administration, the amendment moves the Business Process Systems Integration Project, or BPSI, from the operating budget into the capital budget. In Metro Transit, the amendment brings $9.9 million in sales tax funds to replace the local county contributions that had been in the budget as prescribed by the sales tax legislation. It also brings $9 million in sales tax funds that were appropriated in the legislation as pass-through grants to our 4 suburban transit providers. Metro Mobility also adds $2 million in expenses for increased driver hourly rates and contracts. In community development, the amendment adds $3 million in federal revenues for pass-through grants in the HRA. In environmental services, the amendment adds $4.75 million in state appropriations for capital improvements in the city of Newport and for planning work in White Bear Lake, and adds $7 million in environmental services for inflationary costs in chemicals and utilities. Turning to the capital budget, the amendment adds $300 million to the Metro Transit Authorized Capital Program, or ACP, mainly for 16 projects supported by the federal government and state appropriations. It adds $35 million to the MTS ACP for 7 projects and $116 million to the Community Development ACP for 16 projects. Did I say that right? Sorry about that okay. Many of those supported by state appropriations for the past legislative session. These projects are listed in tables 9, 10, and 11 of the report. As the council members know, there is another budget amendment on the council agenda tonight for, where am I at? Yes, 2023-179, same week, and that will be the special August transportation budget for the Blue Line Extension project. That item will follow this. That also adjusts the capital budget. If both of these amendments are passed tonight, the capital budget tables will be adjusted to reflect the changes to both items. So they're not now, but if they pass tonight, they will be then made as a change in both of those, all of those tables. So, Mr. Chair, the motion is that the Metropolitan Council authorizes the 2023 unified budget as amended and in accordance with the attached tables.
And this is the 174 amendment.
We are 174 JT.
And
This is the one with a lot of zeros.
Correct.
Yes.
All righty. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. And there is because it is a budget amendment, it is by its nature a roll call vote. Any discussion? All right, hearing none. Bridget?
Johnson,
Aye.
Chambliss,
Aye.
Barber,
Aye.
Pacheco,
Aye.
Lilligren,
Aye.
Cameron,
Aye.
Zelli,
Aye.
Morales,
Aye.
Lindstrom,
Aye.
Cedarburg,
Aye.
Bento,
Aye.
Lee,
Aye.
Carter,
Aye.
Dolkar,
Aye.
Wolf.
Aye.
All right, that motion carried. An amendment, Councilmember Johnson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This is the business item 2023-179JT, the Unified Budget Amendment, and this is going back then to the grant agreement that we just spoke about earlier on our agenda, and is moving that money now into our budget through the grant agreement process. The 2023 Special August Transportation Amendment makes one change to the capital budget in transportation. The proposed amendment was reviewed and approved on a split vote of the Transportation Committee on August 14th, and it did not pass out of the Management Committee by a split vote of 3-3 on August 23rd. We've had a lot more discussion, though, since then. The amendment recognizes $75.3 million in revenue from Hennepin County for the Blatno LRT Blue Line Extension Project. These funds are being brought into the project's authorized capital program, or ACP, as indicated on Table 9 of the attachments. The motion then, Mr. Chair, is that the Metropolitan Council authorizes the 2023 unified budget as amended and in accordance with the attached tables.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Second. All right. Councilmember Johnson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I am, as the Chair of the Management Committee, I am pleased to bring this item forward. I won't be voting for it with all due respect, but I just wanted to say, again, it's happy to be part of my duty, and it marries up what we've approved earlier on tonight's agenda.
Well, thank you for your leadership on the Management Committee. Any more discussion? Councilmember Pacheco.
Mr. Chair, members, I have been pondering this discussion and from the previous meeting and the previous meeting before that, and what we're doing and what we're about to do. And I just want to make it clear that this vote tonight didn't stop anything, and we were asking more questions and we were getting further down the path. But often when we talk about things, and I'll back up and say, for a while there, I had both the green and blue line in my district, so I've gone to two quarter management committees and hearing a lot from each other. And I will tell you that what I think was missing here was that the fact that both our staff and Hennepin County staff have put a lot of time, effort. We've done some great work in the community and anti-displacement. We've listened. I've also met with the condo owners over in Calhoun there and listened to their story. And I said, so nothing's done here, even to this point, that is somewhat under the table or somehow not aware, or that no one's aware of. I think we've had great discussions. I get the emails. For a while, I was getting two sets of emails almost daily here. So I guess finally say, I just want to commend both the staff, our staff, and actually Hennepin County staff. We worked hand in glove with them on some very critical issues. And so I just want to make sure that's recognized as we go forward in this debate. As we ask for information, we get the information. And I think that's important, and I think that's important. I appreciate the work Chair Zelli has done. He's taken a lot of hits out there in the community, and I've sat with him on some of them, behind him actually. And so I just want to recognize Nick and your team and the folks at both lines there. And I think at the end of the day, when we get all information, we'll make it. We will vote support or not, and actually. To be honest with you, I think we've had some good debates, and I told Councilmember Wolf that I appreciate her opinion on these things is real to the point, and And I like that, and we may not agree, but I think that's part of our process here. So anyway, I just want to thank the teams for that.
Anybody else? Councilmember Johnson.
Mr. Chair, I just want to second everything Councilmember Pacheco said. And I really, again, want to thank you and everybody else for giving us a little bit of room and time here to just more fully discuss and understand this. My motives have always been to just, give us time to make sure all of our questions are answered and our ideas are put forward, give the community a little more time to absorb all of this. We kind of get used to this and we're in process, but it's important that people who are impacted across the region get time. And I couldn't agree more, Councilmember Pacheco. I love to have good, robust debates because it shows that we're really working hard. There are many, many sides to a lot of these really big issues, and it shows that we're reflecting those here in the debate. But for me, I respect each and every one of you. I never question your motives, and I appreciate having you as colleagues. So where we may disagree, we will disagree in agreement, and we'll move on and continue to do good things. So this will be passing tonight, and we will get it to the next step and then continue to do our good work.
Yeah, thank you. And thank you for those comments. And thank you to Councilmember Pacheco. It is a process, and I actually do want to second also that thought that we not only get to know each other, we get to know the issues, what's really underneath it. And we do a lot of engagement with neighborhoods and with stakeholders and committee members, but sometimes having it in this bigger body itself is time well spent. Any other comments, thoughts? With that, this is a roll call vote, so I will call for the vote. Bridget?
Johnson,
No.
Chambliss,
Aye.
Barber,
Aye.
Pacheco,
Aye.
Lilligren,
Aye.
Cameron,
Aye.
Zelli,
Aye.
Morales,
Aye.
Lindstrom,
Aye.
Cedarburg,
Aye.
Bento,
No.
Lee,
Aye.
Carter,
Aye.
Volkar, Wolf.
No.
All right, that motion carried. Thank you. And again, thank you for the comments and debate and hard work. One other piece of business, under other business, item 2023-184. As chair of the Met Council, I am pleased to accept the recommendations of the nominating committee for appointments to the Livable Communities Advisory Committee. So this is a committee that reviews, recommends funding awards for the council for the Livable Communities Demonstration Account and the Transit-Oriented Development Grants. Its members are drawn from 7 areas of expertise. This year, in addition to the role of committee chair, we had 11 openings across the areas of local government, development, finance, transportation, environment, site design, and community engagement. We had an exceptionally talented group of applicants, and the nominating committee did a really commendable stand-up job in putting together a list of finalists. So a special thank you to Councilmember Vento, Councilmember Lee, past committee member Mariuccio Ochoa, Livable Community staff Sarah Burke, for serving as the nominating committee. And I would, at this time, entertain a motion to approve the recommended appointments to the Livable Communities Advisory Committee as described in business item 2023-184.
So moved.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. And I really do want to thank those members who are involved in the selection process, but also, this is the heart of what Met Council does and is often also not fully understood. So it's really a tremendous amount of work and it's tremendously important grants that we are able to provide. So any other comments, thoughts? All right, all those in favor, yes.
It wasn't related to this, I apologize. Forgot we had to vote.
We're going to vote first. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Oppose? All right, no roll call? No, okay, just kidding. Too soon? Sorry. Is there a council member and other comments? Councilmember Vento.
As it relates to appointments, we are still looking for applicants for the Metropolitan Parks and Open Space Commission. Secretary of State Steve Simon sent out a recent email. I don't know if you subscribe to his emails, but there are a number of state boards and commissions that do not have applicants, and I am deeply concerned about that. I think it reflects a lot about what's happening in our nation. People are checking out, and we need good people at the table having these robust discussions, and we need them on the Metropolitan Parks and Open Space Commission. So, let me know if you know of anybody. I'm happy to talk to folks about the process, about the committee, about the time commitment. It's just crucially important. Thank you.
Thank you, Sue, and thank you again for the work you do on that committee. MPOS, really great work. Any other comments or reports from anybody? I'm looking for the regional administrator. Is there a regional administrator? Marie, do you have anything to say? No. How about our chief counsel? All righty. Important meeting, important discussion. And every day I learn greater appreciation for this council. I had a great opportunity to make a presentation today at lunch, big PowerPoint. It was an introduction about what the council does, and it starts with a picture of all of you. And I look at that and I was thinking, like, you know, what a group, what a tremendous group we have wrestling with such important issues. So I'm humbled by it every day. Thank you. This meeting's adjourned.
Thank you.